Pricing correctly is a major problem with all businesses, all from all over the world. We see it all the time, and one of the biggest obstacles that happens, I suppose, when people go through this whole journey of trying to find their right customers, pricing their products correctly, so on and so forth, is that they don't sell their value the right way. You see it all day, every day. It's a prolific stepping stone within the sales process, and so many people are not doing this correctly, especially guys that we speak to within our community and clients of ours in the trades from all over the place. In today's podcast, you're going to learn how to sell your value, and you're going to learn how to really make that a part of your sales process. It's an extremely valuable lesson. I hope you guys really do take this and implement what you learn. It's the second part of the Ethical Sales Delivering Healthy Margins series. If you missed the first episode, make sure you go back and check that one out. That was why having decent margins are important. It's as equally as important to listen to that one as it is to this one, and you'll probably serve you better to go and listen to that one first and then come back and listen to this one, because that's the way it's structured. Anyway, guys, I look forward to your comments on this one. I know you're going to love it, and if you want to join the community, you can head across there where you can be part of the conversation. Today's podcast has been proudly brought to you by Tradie Web Guys. Tradie Web Guys work with tradespeople only on their websites and marketing solutions to help them stand out from their competition. Everything from web design through to SEO, search engine marketing, content creation, you name it, guys. It is a customized solution for trade-based organizations, and it's fantastic. Head across to tradiewebguys.com.au/apply, fill in the form, and let's have a conversation. It'll be the best thing you could possibly do to kickstart 2019 the right way.
Giving tradies and contractors around the globe the tools to run a modern business. You're listening to Toolbox Talks from the Site Shed. Now here's your host, Matt Jones.
Jon Dale, welcome back to the Site Shed podcast.
Thank you, Matt. Good to be here again.
This is part 2 of the Ethical Sales Delivering Healthy Margins series that we're conducting over at the Site Shed. The first episode we recorded and you would have listened to last week, listeners, would have been Where is Your Power? And this episode today is called Power in Process. Jon, you are from Small Fish Coaching. You're based up on the northern New South Wales, Byron Bay.
Yeah.
And you specialise with coaching trades. And the website smallfish.com.au. Social media at smallfish_coach.
Correct.
Mate, do you want to give us a quick rundown on episode 1?
Yeah. Look, I'm passionate about the fact that sales is vital for a trades business to be successful, and
any business.
People, or any business, any business, but trades in particular, right? And and it's a professional responsibility that you have for your business, and you need to be disciplined and professional about your sales, just like you do about your trade work, And if you do sales badly, one, you get fewer jobs, which is bad. But also, you tend to discount because that's all you've got if you're not very good at sales. So you tend to discount, which means you have poor margins, which means business can be rubbish, right? And if you do it right, you win more jobs and you win them at fatter margins. And that, of course, is great for business, and you'll be in a much happier place. And I hope I'm selling it, because I'm trying to sell it quite hard, If you're in business, you should focus on sales and do it properly. It's not that hard, right? And in episode 1, we talked a bit about preparation. And preparing, your knowledge, understanding where your price is at, because a lot of this is about selling your value and charging a bit more than you would if you couldn't sell your value. So understanding where you sit on price compared to other people, understanding where you sit in terms of profitability, So when someone says that's too much, if you know that's what's necessary to be profitable in business, and that at a lower price you don't want that business, that's a very powerful position to be. So knowledge is power.
I love that conversation we had about the in the previous episode about like the understanding, and how we were talking about really getting clarity around the value that you're bringing and who you're targeting, and the way you communicate and all that kind of stuff. I thought that was really cool.
It's huge, isn't it? It's just huge. If you've got to know who you are and what kind of trade business you are. There are cheap ones, and some people want a cheap trade, and there are ones who do a really bloody good job, and there are customers who want that. But you can't be cheap and do a really bloody good job because it takes longer. So, and I choose two simple examples there, but they're very important. It's important for you to understand what type of trade business you are and what type of customer you serve, so you can tell people, so they can decide what they want to buy, and so they can understand what your price refers to. You don't just build a house or fix a toilet or build a fence. You build a certain type of house and deliver a certain type of service or a certain type of fence, and your customer gets to choose then. So that's your job.
It's interesting too, you say that. I know over the years we do a lot of work in the content space for trade businesses, helping them get, really nice, fresh, organic, useful content on their websites, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And one of the big things that we try and communicate to them is that that mental block around, what they think their services are, as to, what those services, what the end result is. You get these people that build these amazing homes and, design these beautiful landscapes and all this kind of stuff. And they just think, well, I'm a builder or I'm a gardener. Whereas it couldn't be further from the truth. Like, at the end of the day, they're in the life transformation business. They're about taking somebody's home and turning it into their dream and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, or somebody's business.
Right. Right.
And you're totally right. And it's important in your sales and in your marketing as well, isn't it?
Because
the same understanding goes through both.
Yeah, and it's you really can turn, what in retrospect might be quite a boring service or delivery. Oh, I put a hot water heater in. Oh, I cleared a blocked drain, into quite an amazing story. Oh, I cleared a blocked drain at the Sydney Opera House. Oh, I installed a hot water heater at the very top of Centrepoint Tower or something. Like there's always a different way you can spin it, which can make useful content.
Yeah, look, and I find when I talk to people, when I start having these conversations with them, most of my customers, probably most of yours, are quite proud of doing a good job. We're not just here doing work to be paid in that kind of boring sense, right?
Yep.
Most of them know that they do something quite good. They're quite proud of being, diligent or professional or creative or doing some beautiful work or helping people out or solving problems. We need to find that. It's about finding that, because that's what people buy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So understanding your value, is key. And there was one more. Marketing is power. Do marketing, one, properly, and two, enough. You've got power in any negotiation, because you can say to somebody, I don't need your business. And mean it.
The bottom line is, folks, if you didn't listen to part 1 of this series, go back and listen to it.
Yeah, you should have.
And then come back and listen to part 2. We're talking about power in process. John, what are we talking about really here? What's this episode summarized as?
About having a sales process. You need a sales process. Don't just wing it. Don't just walk in. This is what I hear people doing all the time, right? They walk into a sales situation. So an inquiry's come in, someone's called, they speak to somebody who makes an appointment for the boss to go out or something. The salesperson goes out to the customer who says, can I have a quote? And the salesperson says yes and starts measuring up, right? And I used to call it solutioning. And it's not selling. Doesn't help them make a decision about what to buy. Doesn't help them understand how you're different from your competitors or understand how you're going to help them. So there's power in process, in breaking down this sort of sales engagement into processes, into steps. And I'll go through them in a minute.
Yeah, I'd love to hear more about this, because we bang on about process and system and operating procedures and whatever you want to call it repeatedly on the show and to our clients. And I think there is, with the different specialists we have on the show and experts that we speak to, people tend to have a slightly different spin on what a process is and what it should look like and how it should be deployed and how it should be implemented, all this kind of stuff. So I'm interested to see hear what your take is on that.
Okay.
And likewise, I'm also interested to hear about some of the practicalities around how you go about helping your clients implement process into their business so they actually get followed. Because all too often we hear that story about organizations having, business processes and training manuals and operating manuals,
Yeah,
all this kind of stuff in their businesses, and no one follows them.
Yeah.
So
I can answer that one in one word.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, checklists.
Yeah. Okay. Beautiful. Love it.
Yeah, I will expand on that, but that's the gist of it really, and it applies to any process, but equally to a sales process.
Yeah, and it's interesting you say that because I know, one of the big revelations that we've had over the years is the relationship and association between standard operating procedures, processes, manuals, whatever you want to call it, and checklists, project management, task management, whatever you want to call that. So I think when you marry those two together, you've got an extremely powerful business tool.
Very much so, yeah. This is the process I teach, and we've slid slightly away from sales, but it's still relevant. If for a job, any job, whether it's a sales visit or installing a fence, there's a process. It's a bit like a recipe for boiling an egg. There's a list of what you need to get, and then what you need to do and steps to take. First, dig a hole. Second, put the post in, shit like that. And if I give away my absolute ignorance of how to build a fence, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a process. The first thing to do is document it. The second thing to do is train everybody. This is how I want you to do it. This is our way of doing it. The third thing is to have a checklist so that they can't forget that first they've got to dig the hole before they can put the post in it, or line out the string so it's in a straight line or whatever it is, right? So the checklist is mostly about making sure people can't forget any steps.
Mm-hmm.
Or if they want to cut a corner, they have to consciously cut it. And then
idiot-proofing it.
It's idiot-proofing it or lazy-proofing it, yeah.
It's interesting. I find one of the most powerful factors when we're talking what you've called checklist, but what we typically call project management is the accountability that ties to it. And when you're using, we may get into this in this episode or we may not, but we find that when we're using, project management software or tools or programs, and people like to have to, well, and my team especially, they all know I train them on this and they all do it. So, ticking the boxes as they go to make sure things have been done, it means that things don't get missed. And if they tick it and it hasn't been done, then they're in for a shitstorm from me. Whereas,
or at least some embarrassment, right?
Well, exactly. And if they tick it and it's been done, then fantastic. And I expect it done,
Yeah, totally. I'm the same. So that's what a checklist is for. And the final step, of course, is the accountability, looking at the checklist and making sure that they did it. And if they didn't, the shitstorm, right? Bringing that shitstorm into play and saying, well, that's not okay.
Cool. So where do you want to start?
All right, back to sales and sales process.
Yeah.
There are two different types of sales process here for trades businesses, right? One for small jobs and one for big projects.
Okay.
And you can define them how you like, but I'll call a small job less than 1,000 or done in a day or two, and a larger job something rather bigger.
Yeah.
And a smaller job or sale has a different process, right? It's governed by different things.
Mm-hmm.
People are much more inclined to make a quick decision. So speed is quick, and if they just want to spend $300 driving out to measure up and then going home to do a quote and email it, which was the old way, you're going to cost yourself. One, you're costing yourself all that time. And two, you have an opportunity when they call to close that deal straight away and say, we'll do that for $500. Shall I book it in now?
So would we be talking about here, maybe your emergency or residential electricians or maybe gardeners or plumbers or whatever? Plumbers,
electricians, that service and maintenance work.
Right.
Yeah, very much so. They're the kind of the obvious ones. And I think a lot of people refer to it as flat rating. You build a flat rate price list so that when someone calls up and says the toilet's broken, you can say, that sounds like we need to replace the innards of your cistern.
Yep.
That's $280. And that happened to me recently, That's exactly what happened. The plumber came out and said, it will be $280. Do you want me to do it? And I said, yeah.
Yeah. And we touched on this in the previous episode when we're talking about understanding your costs and making sure that you're factoring that into, everything into the price.
That's right.
So we won't go back into that.
No, we won't go back about making sure the price is right. But the deal is have a price list that is right. And rather than fannying around quoting and going through all that, making sure it's exactly right, make a call, take a bit of a risk, and book the job in quick.
Yeah.
And you'll win more work, and if you get your price list right, you'll win work profitably anyway.
Do you, with that sort of business, encourage call out fees?
Yeah, I do.
Yep.
Yeah. You need to be charging for as much of your time as possible. So either a call out fee or a minimum charge, same difference.
Right.
You can structure it how you like on your price list, but the gist of it is you're charging for your driving time, basically.
For the listeners out there that do that sort of service, so let's call it residential maintenance, for choice of a worse term. For the listeners out there that are saying, okay, cool, well, I do that sort of work. However, my clients are typically real estate agents and strata bodies. They don't normally go for the upfront pricing side of things. How do you dance around that one?
Look, it's difficult. It depends how firm they are about not going for it. You can still say, fine, do you want me to just go and do the job and then tell you how much it's cost me to do? I'm not driving out there, driving home, sending you a quote, because that's a waste of my 3 hours. You need to stand up for yourself a little bit and manage your relationship with your customer and communicate properly and expect that reasonable people aren't just going to say, get lost, do it my way.
Yeah.
If they can find a tradesperson who will go out and work like that, you're not going to win, perhaps, and you maybe need to go and find a new customer. Back to marketing preparation is power, right? Because if you can say to them, I don't need you, I don't need to take your shit.
Yeah. One of the best moments I think business owners experience when they get to fire their first client.
Oh, it's so powerful, isn't it? It feels so great.
We won't go into that one today, but
no, let's not.
All right, cool. So then on the flip side, we've got, your companies that will do, project style work, longer cycle jobs.
Yeah. I'll spend more time on this one. I think there's more to do, and you're investing more time and your customer's investing more in their buying decision. So the wrong sales process, as I said just before, is for the customer to ring up and say, can you give me a quote? And you say, yes, I can. And to go and do it. Because what happens is all you're going to talk about is the price.
Right.
There's no qualification, there's no selling, there's no questions, there's no verbal contract, which I'll explain in a minute. There's no presenting, there's no close, there's no relationship building, or any of that is left a bit to chance. So what you should do is when they call or inquire and somebody speaks to them, you qualify, right? You have a little chat on the phone and you decide whether you're going out to visit them or not.
Yeah.
They're going to say, can I have a quote, right? Because that's all customers know to ask. We're a bit stupid, us customers, and I'm even whether we're residential Mr. and Mrs. Smith or whether we're business owners, we don't really understand how to ask you to help us, even though we know you're experts. What we understand is that what you ask a tradesperson is, can I have a quote, please?
Yeah.
And often what they mean is, we're thinking about having an extension and we don't know where to start. Can you help? But they say, can I have a quote? And if you go and do them a quote, you're likely to waste your time. So what I'm saying is try and understand what they really want and then decide what to do.
So we've got loads of builder clients all over the place, and they have same pain points. They get a lot of spend a lot of time quoting projects, or even at the base level having conversations with potential customers that are by no way whatsoever ready to have that conversation. And by that, it might be they have not yet, they might call in and say, hey, I wanted to speak to you or get a quote for a home renovation, blah, blah, blah. But, on further investigation, they come in, they sit down, they have coffee, they take an hour of time. They haven't had any drawings done. They haven't got DA. They haven't had any architects, or engineers, like none of these things, right? So that conversation, having that conversation with the builder at that point in time is a complete waste of time because it's not ready to have that conversation yet. They've got to have things first.
Well, it's still tire kicking, right? And everyone hates tire kickers, but actually in a project like this, kicking tires is an important part of their buying process.
Right.
So they've got to, they go through a cycle, right? You start thinking, we want an extension or we want to buy a new house. And you start looking, don't you? You jump online and you talk to some builders and you look at some websites and you look at some architects and you go through it and you think about the money and you wonder how much it costs. And their first question might be, we're thinking of doing an extension. Can you help us understand how much it costs and what we can get for our money? And you're going to have this conversation about how much things cost and how much money they've got. And, it's not appropriate to give them a quote at that time. And if you rush off and start quoting, you're going to waste all that time and energy of yours, and you're probably not going to help them. So you've got to try and understand what they're really trying to achieve here.
Yeah.
You've got to decide whether you're going to site or not, or whether you just give them a bit of a clue and say, extensions are normally 3,500 a square meter.
Yeah.
Is that enough for you for the moment?
Yeah.
And if you've explained a bit, they might go, yeah, it is really. We'll call you back.
Yeah.
Maybe you put them on your mailing list and send them, your emails, and maybe call them back in another month when they've had to think about money, and then progress it from there. You do want to invest a bit in this relationship, because if you've helped them, they'll come back to you when it's time. Stop kicking tires.
I think you've just probably, I'm glad you said that, because I bang on about this all the time on the show. And I'm not sure if my clients hear me say it or if they just think, oh, here he goes again off on his tangent. But when you're talking about, a project style service, which has let's call it a long sales cycle. So, I mean, if people come to you for block drain, they're going to call it in and book it tomorrow or now. They want you out there this afternoon.
Yeah.
If you're going to build a house or renovate your home, the sales cycle is going to be considerably longer. They're going to investigate, they're going to research, they're going to speak to a number of different companies, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
The guy, in our experience dealing with loads of companies that do this type of work, the company that invests in the gap in between when they come to you for the initial information and the time when they're ready to purchase, the company that invests cleverly in that gap in between is normally the company that will win.
Yeah, I'm totally with you.
And there is some really cool things you can do. And it's one of the reasons why we're so passionate about content, is because, content gives you the privilege to be able to communicate with these people about things that they've already told you they're interested in.
Totally, mate. I'm totally with you. We should probably have another conversation about this.
Yeah.
I call it short-term relationship marketing. And I imagine it's what you deliver for your customers.
We do. And we just see amazing results about it, because the reality is, for you guys out there, plumbers, builders, electricians, whatever, like it or not, nobody really gives a shit about reading your blog. But
no, they don't. No one wants to know about how the plumber's doing and who's employed.
But people are extremely interested about hearing about projects that you've completed or jobs that you've done that may in some way be similar to a job they want to get done or something like that.
While they're on the market, right?
Right.
They're on the market for something. So that 12-week or 20-week period between let's get an extension and making a decision, they're fully interested in your stuff, aren't they?
Exactly. So and this is one of the messages, that I love to portray to you guys out there listening. You guys, and I know we touched on this in the previous episode as well, John. Like, these guys have amazing stories. They just sometimes have the blinkers on when they're trying to communicate it.
They do, and it's a confidence thing, isn't it?
Well, I don't know if it's so. Maybe it's a confidence thing, or maybe it's just sometimes you get so caught up in doing what you do, you neglect to appreciate the end result. And it's the same conversation I have with guys when we're talking about creating content. You're not selling the process, you're selling the outcomes. You want to be sure that you're talking about what life will be like after, what's the reward. And I build homes, but what you really do is you're creating these amazing lifestyle changes for people, and you're building them their dream. There's a completely different message there. We build homes, or we deliver on creating dreams.
Yeah, or whatever specific thing it is. I've had people say we build luxury homes for life,
Right.
Or I build slightly higher quality project homes than your average. You can almost be really that specific,
Absolutely. So I encourage you guys out there to really, take
that
into
preparation,
consideration. Right? That what are the customers really interested in? Are they interested in having a home built, or are they interested in, investing probably the second largest investment they'll ever make in their entire life on renovating their home with their hard-earned savings and money?
Yeah.
What are they looking for there? They're looking for the result. They're looking for the outcome. So get good at communicating the outcome.
Yeah, totally. We're back to the sales process then, right? So when they look at that, well,
Segue.
like that, yeah. So they've inquired, you're having a phone conversation. I'm going to encourage you to have a checklist, to use a checklist that reminds you to ask all the questions.
What are the questions?
What's really going on here? Well, you want, from your perspective, you want to qualify for a site visit, right? I've got 10 minutes on the phone. I need to decide whether I'm driving out to see them and spending an hour or two.
Yep.
That's your main priority for this phone call. So in order to do that, you're going to ask a few questions about the project. What are you doing? Why are you doing it? You're going to ask a few questions about, there are 4 things: money, authority, immediacy, and need. All right? I'm perhaps digging in deeper than I was expecting to here. People need to have those 4 things if they're going to buy. They need to be able to afford to do this thing. They need to be able to make this decision, to have the authority to make the decision. It needs to be reasonably soon, right? Or they're not buying it on your quote. And they need to have a need for what it is that you're selling. We're just talking about what it is that you're selling. So you need to ask those 4 questions. I'm this kind of builder. I'm this kind of trade. Is that what you want? You know, if they say, no, I want somebody really bloody cheap, tell them you're in the wrong place and don't go. You know?
As I won't say a tech geek, I'm not really a tech geek, but as someone that embraces the majesty of tools and technology, this checklist, where does it live?
It depends. And I'm going to try and stay away from that a little bit. It can live on paper and be attached to a clipboard so that you go out with your pen and don't forget to scribble on it. I use one in my sales meetings and it lives on screen in Google Docs. Mm-hmm. And I open a new one and make a copy with that customer's name on it every time I have a sales meeting. So it depends on how you set your tech up. You know, it might live in ServiceMate or something similar to that. It might be on your website as you pre-qualify people in a form on your website. Yeah. I'm not a massive fan of doing too much of that because there's always that conflict between qualifying them online and getting the inquiry, right? So I'm never quite sure which side of that fence I sit on. I
think importantly, if you're in a conversation that at some point is going to involve another team member, another staff member, another party, then it would be wise to capture that information in a program of sort that is available to everybody that needs to see it. So you could call that job management, ServiceMate, Tradeify, those sort of apps, whatever. You could call it project management. You could call it CRM, customer relationship management, whatever. But having that transparency over conversations that are happening within the organization, we find prevent impending disasters or the possibility of clients getting phone calls to have the same conversations more than once.
Yeah, to avoid the repeating yourselves with people.
Data capture, really, like it's understanding that, okay, it's being efficient in helping your team understand where that person is at throughout that sales process and making sure that, you know, everyone's on the same page so that you can effectively and efficiently manage that journey.
Yeah, totally.
Sorry, carry on.
No, that's all right. You've distracted me a bit, I think, from where I was going to go. I'm thinking about the things you need to be saying in the sales process.
Yeah.
Check for the moment. So,
well, you mean checklist, I suppose.
The checklist. Well, let's imagine a checklist is on a paper at the moment, right? And at some point you organize the tech, but you could do it on an iPad or a laptop just as happily, and you could do it directly into fields, into a CRM or your Tradeify or whatever. You build a trade. Mm-hmm. So they all work from this perspective, right? And ideally, in that phone conversation, you want to understand a bit about what they can spend, who's going to be deciding. You know, if it's one party and a couple, and she says, "Come out and give me a quote," you need to know that the partner's going to be there.
Yeah,
you're wasting your time. You're not going to get to do any selling. So you might need to insist that all the people involved in making this decision are going to be there when you show up. The last thing you want is to go and do all that work and have the wife or husband come into the picture later and go and just look at your price and not know how useful or nice or expert you were.
There's so much power in that. I remember my friend, a colleague, and now business partner, Peter from Leadership Dynamics, he always taught me never do any presentation or proposals or pitches or whatever to one part of a couple. He said, even to the point, if you rock up to the home and they said they were going to be there and only one of them's there, the other one's out picking up the kids, have a coffee with them, have a chat, postpone the meeting.
Yeah, totally. Because you're wasting your time, right?
Yep. They'll do exactly what you just said.
Yeah.
He'll try and then tell his wife secondhand, about that.
Yeah, and she'll say no.
Just tell them, and he'll dick it up, and then he'll be like, "Nah, forget it."
Yeah, you missed. You're not. Yeah, you need to be selling to the decision makers. If they're not there, you're not selling. You're not doing your job.
Yeah.
Equally, you need to qualify for money. A 2-story extension, 10 meters by 10 meters. That's going to be 300,000. Have you got that much money?
Yeah.
Oh no, we've only got 50,000. Well, I don't think I'm coming out to see you.
Or have you organised finance, which is...
Or have you organised finance, or do you think...
A polite way to dance around. Do you have any money?
Yeah. I usually use words like, is that in your budget? Right.
Yeah.
It's a nice way to do it, though, to lead with, look, what you're talking about there sounds like this much. Is that in your budget? Because, of course, if you say what's your budget, everyone's all defensive straight away, and you're not open in communication. But if you say, I think that we're talking that kind of money, are we on the right track? Have you got that organised? Yeah, all that stuff.
And I think as well, what you've just said there is really powerful. And it's something that I do with my process as well. Like, I always lead with that question in the first. I mean, I've got a form that people will go to if they want to come work with us. And one of the first questions is around budget. And the reason I put it on the right front and center is because as much as it's there to qualify, it's there to disqualify. Like, I don't want any wasting their time, and I don't want them wasting mine. So I ask them straight away. I'm like, have you...
I was going to go to, yeah.
Right, okay.
Qualifying is about qualifying out.
Right.
Right, early. If they're not going to buy from you, qualify out early in the piece, right? Don't go right through to the end of the sales process only to not win it.
Yep.
Don't go after the first phone call, figure it out then. Save all that time and spend that time on somebody who does qualify and is likely to buy.
We're like kindred spirits, you and me, John.
I know, aren't we? I'm loving it. Look, in the next stage, right, in my sales process, so we've done marketing, and then we go inquiry, and then we've got site visit. So you've decided that they're worth visiting, right? Sounds like they've probably got enough money, or they're at least thinking that they can spend that kind of money. Sounds like they like you and want that kind of job that you do. It's soon enough that they want to do it for you to go and invest this time. And they're both going to be there, or they're all going to be there, or the decision makers. Then you go to the site visit. You do the same again, basically. More qualifying in more detail. The first one was a bit quick on the phone, 10 minutes. The second one is an hour meeting. You've got a bigger, longer checklist, and you're going to make a point of asking more questions and more qualifying. This time you're qualifying for, do I go home and prepare a quote? Or rather, do I go home and prepare a proposal?
Mm-hmm.
I'll explain that in a minute too. So do I go home and prepare a quote, which is going to take me anywhere from an hour to 10 hours, right? If you're a builder, 25 hours possibly.
Mm-hmm.
A big investment, right? You don't just want to be sitting home plowing through quotes for somebody who doesn't need a quote. Often they ask you for a quote and that's not what's required, right? If they haven't got their finance yet, a proper detailed firm quote is useless.
Right.
Or pointless, right? You don't want them choosing towel rails and things like that. Or, you don't need to be getting into that level of detail. If they need to talk about finance, they need to know to within the nearest 10 or 20,000. And maybe a ballpark is enough.
Mm-hmm.
So it's about having those conversations, not rushing off to measure up and start doing takeoffs from the drawings, but to understand what's really required and provide them with the appropriate help. You're going to do a quote at some point, but it might not be what they need right now. It's leading them through that. And it's also asking questions about the project, their reasons for it, their fears about it, and perhaps, if they'll tell you rather, their buying criteria. What sort of builder or tradesperson are they going to choose? How are they going to choose who to appoint for this job?
Okay. I'm with you.
Are they going to choose the one they like the best? Are they going to choose the one who can get it done before Christmas, before Granny arrives from England to stay in the Granny
Right,
family?
I'm with you. Okay.
If you can't do it before Christmas and it has to be done before Christmas, wasting your time.
Right.
So it's those kinds of questions that lead you to the real reasons they're going to decide. We all assume they're going to buy the cheapest, and it's never true.
Right.
And I could talk about that one for days.
Yep. No, I agree with that.
Yeah. So it's about making sure you ask those questions and then explaining your value make sure you explain your value and relate it to those reasons and those fears and those buying criteria that you just asked them about.
Yep.
And it's probably going to be trust and reliability and risk and process. Right? Every customer, whether it's Mr. and Mrs. Jones building an extension or a house, or whether it's, a restaurant owner doing a fit out for the next one in his chain, trust, reliability, risk, and process are all what they're concerned about. Mm-hmm. They don't want their project delayed. They want to meet an opening date. They want to, they don't want to be paying wages while the restaurant, the fit out's not finished. Right? They've all got needs in terms of their project, their job, needs that you can help them with or damage them with. And they want to make sure it's going to be the good one, right? That you can help. They want to make sure you're low risk. They want to make sure they can trust you. They want to make sure they can leave you alone in their house for 3 months, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And my final statement on that one is, don't do the quote if they don't qualify, but perhaps do something else. Perhaps agree that the quote's not appropriate yet and you shouldn't do the quote till nearer the time. And instead you'll do this, and then put them into your relationship marketing program. Schedule another call.
At what stage in that process would you get them to make a financial investment of some description?
It depends, really. And I know there are other coaches who advocate charging for your quote, and I'm not sure I'm ready for that. I'm not sure that's necessary. If you qualify properly, it's not a necessary thing. So I often think that that's a kind of almost a cheat, getting them to pay for you to do a quote. I understand it's your valuable time, but if you qualify right, you're only quoting for people who are quite likely to buy anyway. So the power's more in doing the qualification properly and the selling properly, not in the charging money.
We've had a lot of guys a lot of our clients have had a lot of success out of, the reality is for a lot of the builders that are quoting projects, it's not even really a quote. Like, what they're delivering on is a ridiculously detailed project analysis, which could take them a week to do.
Yeah.
If they're not charging for that time, I think they're insane. You can qualify to the cows come home, in my opinion, but unless someone's willing to, if you're going to be spending a week on a project analysis, and
if you're going to spend a week on it, yeah, you should be charging. You should be
getting paid.
Not everyone will accept that.
Exactly.
And particularly in a commercial environment, none of them will accept that. So, ideally, yeah, of course, it's your professional valuable time and it's your professional advice and your expertise you're giving. Ideally, you should charge for it. I don't know that in the real world it's that easy.
Yeah.
Other people are doing it for free. If you want to compete, you might struggle. So I'm thinking given that the power's in the qualifying, and I always get my clients to focus there. I don't worry too much about the charging for it. I'd rather do this work and then think about whether we charge for it when this work's done and we've got our process right.
So one of the clever ways that a lot of these guys are getting around it now is, because of that same reason, what would be happening is they'd go and they'd do this ridiculous, spend a week quoting this project, giving them full materials breakdown, time allocations, costings, labor rates, blah, 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 so on and so forth. Pretty much the whole job completely project managed. And, clients would turn around with this and they'd just give it to the next builder who was, 5-10% cheaper and say, here's a breakdown of everything you need to do. Go and do it at your price. So a lot of...
I'm going to say to that, don't you?
No.
If that happens, you didn't qualify properly because you didn't realise that they were a pack of arseholes.
Yeah, I know.
Right, and you should have.
But anyway, at the end of the day, I think the bottom line is now that they've got a bit of process in place where they say, well, it's going to cost you $2,000 for this. This is what you're going to be getting, and this is why we charge, because we've dealt with a few people, not say this is you, but we've dealt with people in the past that have done this, and this, and although I'm not. I don't want to throw that basket.
Look, I've flirted with that a few times, and at the moment, I'm not ready to be pushing people to do that yet. I'm more interested in the process, like I'm describing, and the power being in that relationship. You shouldn't be doing a final, firm, detailed, time-consuming quote until you and the customer both really think you're their man. And you're going to get there by investing in all this relationship, in demonstrating this trustworthiness and in giving of your assistance and your help and your advice, you're going to be in much better shape if you do that than if you try and close them too early on a fee. And we're getting into the nitty gritty and the detail now of it, right? And we can have a different opinion on it too.
Mm.
My first sales trainer, a chap called Ross Hancock, always said to me, if you get a no when you try and close somebody, you didn't do your qualifying right.
Yeah.
It's true every time, you know?
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. So back to that checklist for the site visit. When I'm in my coaching, I have a final qualifying criteria, your dickhead filter. You need to switch your dickhead filter on. You know? So have they got the money? Have they got the authority? Are they going to do it reasonably soon? You know, because quotes go out of date as well. And do they have a need for a business like you? And do you like them? Or do you feel like they're dickheads? And we all have this little alarm, right? If it's going off, don't do your quote, don't give your knowledge away.
Yeah.
If you think they're just using you to check the price of the builder they really want to do it, walk the fuck away.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think there's a lot to be said for that gut feeling. Yeah,
massive. And you can usually, if you've got the gut feeling, you can usually probe and get proof too, you know.
Yeah.
There's a couple more steps if I go on.
Keep going.
There's the inquiry, qualify for the site visit. There's the site visit, qualify for the proposal. And you go home and prepare your proposal. And then the next step, you prepare a proposal, not a quote, right? So a quote is that this is what we're going to do and this is how much it's going to cost you. And the proposal says, these are all the things you said that were important about your project. And here's how we're going to make sure you get all those things that were important. And here's all the things you were afraid of. And here's how I'm going to protect you from those things that you're afraid of. And this is what a beautiful experience you're going to have working with us.
Right.
And by the way, this is what we're going to do and how much it's going to cost, right?
Yeah.
And doing that is a worthwhile investment. For one thing, you can usually make a template so that you only have to fill in bits. So it's not like massively time consuming.
Mm.
And then the next step is print it in color, bind it, and go and present it to them in person.
Yeah.
Right? Don't email it. It frustrates the hell out of me when people say, I always email my quotes. I'm like, no. Present your quote face to face. Talk them through it. Read it to them. If you don't read it to them, they just look at the number at the end. And straight back to just a price.
Especially when you're doing something like, building a home or renovating a home. I mean, that might not be the same dynamic if you're talking about giving someone a quote for a block drain or something.
Yeah, different kettle of fish, and you're going to adjust how much time and effort you invest in this process according to the size and the value of the project to you.
Yeah.
But even for a fence, if it's 10 grand for a fence, that might still be worth a visit, or at the very least a video call.
Yeah.
To talk them through the quote, or a phone call and then follow it up with the email. You need to present your quote. It's an important step in the sales process.
I think for service-based businesses as well, where they're typically dealing in a local area, it's not that big a deal.
No, it's not. If you're driving across Sydney, you've got, that's a different issue. You shouldn't do probably. But it's different if you're a subcontractor working with builders. They probably don't want you to explain your quote to them, but you might have done that earlier in your sales process, right? They're just saying, here's another one to quote up for me.
Yeah.
But you did your selling and you're explaining and your relationship building, last year or the year before or whatever.
Yeah.
So the same process is analogous for whatever type of business you are. If you do larger jobs, you need to be doing this kind of stuff. You need to explain the context for your price. What you're getting for this money, right? And a big thing for customers is an apples to apples comparison. You get two builders, they're saying $200,000 or $230,000. You don't know what's the difference. So you need to tell them at least what's included in yours and what to look out for when you're comparing to other people. And that's true whether your customers are, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, or your restaurant owner, or a property developer.
Yeah.
They need to know, right? They need to know what the risks are in your price. So that presentation and presenting your proposal is really important. And the last one, of course, is a close. You've got to close the deal. And by that, I really mean asking them to agree to a day when they give you a yes or a no. And you can say that right at the beginning, right? When you go for your site visit, you can say, when I do the proposal, you give me a decision within a week.
Okay.
I do this with my business coaching. Right? I would start my strategy session with people and I say, well, we're here to decide whether we're doing coaching. Will you give me a decision today or tomorrow?
Yeah.
Most of them will agree to that. And if they've agreed to that, they'll try to. People are decent. They don't want to waste my time.
Yeah,
so it's a reasonable thing,
Yeah, we do the same thing. Yeah, proposals.
Yeah. So then, of course, the final one is, if you agreed a day that they were going to give you a decision, follow them up.
Yeah.
Ring them up. I ring people up and say, what's your decision? It's today.
Yeah.
Nicely. I'm not quite that abrupt, but that's pretty much what I say.
Yeah.
Where are we at? Have you decided? If you haven't and you're struggling,
What questions?
we'll agree at next session. Well, you'll ask me some questions, or I'll agree to give you more time, but we'll set a new date for when we talk again. That's just a simple discipline, And if you don't do that, what happens is people don't feel obliged to make a decision, they'll defer, because decisions are scary, right? You can get them wrong, you can feel stupid, you can be embarrassed in public for making a bad decision, it can cost money. So they'll defer decisions, which leaves you hanging, which is horrible. So
before we wrap this up, do you just want to run through quickly an overview and the framework of the main points that you've just spoken about? Yeah, process is vital. Qualification is a very important thing. Get out of the ones that aren't going to buy from you early. And go through this process. You've got your inquiry where you qualify for a site visit. You've got your site visit where you qualify for a proposal. You've got your proposal where you don't just put the quote forward, but you explain why you're good. And throughout that, you need to be understanding what it is they want. Right? We've talked about understanding what you provide. You need to understand what they want and figure out if that's what you can provide them. And if it is, you've got to explain it to them and make sure they understand. And if it's not, you should get out of there. And when you give them your proposal, your price, you need to explain that context so they know what they get for their money. And it's not just a 4-bedroom house for this price or swimming pool for this price. It's a whole experience around that, isn't it? It's a whole package of risk and trust and business protection and all that kind of stuff. So you've got to do your actual selling, right? You're selling when you're asking questions, understanding them. So this process helps you do that. So the process goes inquiry, site visit, proposal, present proposal, and close, ask for a decision. Lovely. All right. Well, I think that pretty much wraps up this episode. Are you happy with that? I am, Matt. Yeah, thank you. So that was part 2 of the Ethical Sales Delivering Healthy Margins series that I'm conducting with Jon Dale from Small Fish Coaching. If you'd like to get hold of Jon or you want to continue that conversation, well, Jon's actually an active member in the in our Facebook community as well, so you can always ask questions about anything that you've heard in that group. You can also get hold of Jon at smallfish.com.au. We are going to come back and talk resisting the pressure in the 3rd and final podcast that will make up the series, and that will be coming out the week after you've heard this one, actually. So anything you wanted to add, Jon, before we close off? No, I can talk forever, so no, I better shut up. You and me both. All right, cool. We'll wrap this up. Listeners, I hope you enjoyed that. If you have any questions, by all means, you can just post those questions wherever you see this come across social media, or if you see it come out in the newsletter, you can reply to the email. If you have any follow-up questions, I'm sure Jon will gladly come back on the show and answer them. I will. Delighted to. All right, rock and roll. Well, that is a wrap. Thank you for listening to another episode of Toolbox Talks. If you're liking what you hear, then you can head across to thesiteshed.com where you can join our community by signing up to our Toolbox Talks. You'll get sent a weekly notification, which is basically a highlight of everything that we've spoken about during that week, along with any other industry news that may be relevant or specific to the trades. If you're enjoying the show, you can head across to iTunes, Stitcher, or SoundCloud, where you can leave us a review. That would be fantastic, and all the reviews get read out in the show. Likewise, if you have any friends or colleagues that you think would benefit from this show and the episodes that we create, then please go ahead and share it with them.